Hello, welcome back to our calculus series where we learn calculus without knowing calculus. What do we have for lesson number 4? We're going to go from the language of change that we have been learning to mathematical models. Our goal is by the end of this chapter, I would like you to understand what are mathematical models, why we build one, how the mathematical models define our physical world into a digital world, and how this language of the tiny changes dx that we have learned, how that becomes part of the model. Imagine a world without change, no moving cars, no growing trees, no flowing water, no changing weather, no passing time. Does that happen? Not really, because the world is always changing. Something is always happening. Something is always causing a change. The world is full of change. That is why we study it. If there was nothing to study, there will be no science. Science exists because we want to study the change. Now, why do we build models? So, let's take the example of our social media post. You posted the video. Can you tell that how many views you will have by tomorrow? Just simply by looking at the video, you cannot say that. That means there are certain rules that exist that we need to discover so we can understand the patterns, behavior, and kind of predict that how many views we will have by tomorrow or in a month or in a year. So the outcome is not always that there's only one factor that impacts us. There are a lot of other information that matters in defining the rules of a change. For example, the social media post, you have number of subscribers, you have number of likes that happen, number of comments people leave, how many times your video is shared, how long the people watch this video, and the search engines, depending on the content and relevance, they create recommendations. They recommend your video to the other people. Now let's start turning this our reality into some mathematics. We're gonna start giving some names, some symbols to these ingredients of the recipe. So for the recipe of our number of views, we have the ingredient subscriber, we're gonna call it U. We have comments, that is C, number of shares is S, number of views is V. So these symbols, it is up to you what to assign, but they must be self-explanatory. Let's look at our first mathematical model where we're gonna study how the number of views are related to the ingredients, how they all come together. Let's start with this. So we said number of views is V. Let's first start with that it depends on how many times it is shared. Is that enough? The answer is no. Number of shares is not only thing that is going to impact it. Let's see that. Okay, number of comments people have left. Okay, now we have added second ingredient to our recipe. Is that enough? Maybe not. So let's see that we say that let's add number of subscribers to this recipe. Now you can see that how we are building our mathematical model by using the ingredients of the recipe or the rules. So at this point, we have added three ingredients: number of shares, number of comments, number of subscribers. There are other factors, but when we start our mathematical modeling, we start with something simple. We assume few things and then we build on top of that. Now this has become our first mathematical model. So views depend on shares, comments, subscribers. And each of these recipes, for example, like in even when you're cooking, every ingredient is not added in the same quantity. Every ingredient has some kind of impact on the taste. Same way, like all these ingredients, they are assigned some kind of influence factors. Here we have called them C, E, and F. How do we read this mathematical model? What this mathematical model says is that more shares, more views, more comments, more views, more subscribers, more views. In the previous chapter, we learned about the cause and effect. And that applies, meaning that every change causes change. So if their number of shares will change by a little, it will increase the views by a little. If the number of comments are changing by a little, they have impact on number of the views that are changing. If you are getting more subscribers, it is going to change in the number of views as well. So how does this model respond to these changes? Let's look at this. So our model is number of views is depending on number of shares, number of comments, and number of subscribers. Let's change each of these ingredients by a little. We're going to start from the right side before we look at the impact. So we're going to say the number of shares S has increased little by DS. Just recall the language of change of dx. Number of comments has changed a little by dc. Number of subscribers has changed a little du. What does that mean? All these changes that have happened, they have caused the number of change by a little v plus dv. That is how the model responds to a change. Now, since we have said that the model responding to the change, let's see that how this change looks like. So we again say that our model was V shares, comments, and subscribers, and we changed it by a little number of subscribers, EC plus DC, and then number of subscribers changed by DU, and that becomes V plus DV. If you look at it, it is nothing but an algebraic equation that you can multiply these the impact factors to, so this becomes our CS, CDS, EC, EDC, FU plus FDU. So think about it, that you made a change. Let's say that you made a change to the numbers. Now you have a new state. You have an old state, and by subtracting the newer from the older one, you will find out that how much it has changed. The same concept applies here. By when we said that our model ingredients have changed a little, it has caused a change in our result. Now we want to understand what this change looks like. What you will do is you will subtract the new state from the old state, and that will give us the change. So same the subtraction that you have done before, that we subtract the older state from the newer state. What are we left with? dv is equal to cds edc fdu. That is the impact of the change, that a small change in subscribers, comments, and shares has resulted in a change in our number of views. Now that we have learned that this is how most of our engineers, scientists, they study a change in a system. They describe a physical world into a digital world. They build mathematical models out of it. Then they apply, then they discover the recipe of this defining a physical world into a digital world. Then they apply small changes to each of the ingredients, and then they study what is going to be the impact. Okay, so far so good. What we have not touched so far, or what we have not talked about so far, is that if I want to understand the impact of changing each of the ingredients, how small should I change? We have not talked about it. We still have not talked about that. How do I measure this change? And that is going to be our next step in our journey for our next lesson. Thank you for watching this lesson. I hope it was helpful. Do subscribe and like our channel. Become part of Sentinel Set Academy. Till our next lesson, take care. Goodbye.